Leviticus 25:1. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and gather in their yield. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather the grapes of your unpruned vine. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. You may eat what the Lord yields during its Sabbath. You, your male and female slaves, your hired and your bound laborers who live with you. For your livestock also, and for the wild animals in your land, all its yield shall be for food." The lockdown. The mayor of Amsterdam does not rule out a complete closure of the city. Cities such as Wuhan in China and other European cities locked the entire city earlier this year. Such a lockdown is an enormous dilemma. It is making a choice between saving lives or killing the economy. Which of these decisions will be best in the long run? The global economy has already suffered a major blow due to the COVID-19 outbreak. The aftermath of the impact on our society could be devastating. In Leviticus 25:1-7, we also read about some kind of lockdown. The reason for it was very different, but the potential impact was the same. For a society that is totally dependent on agriculture, the fact that for an entire year the land may not be cultivated would be the same as committing economic suicide. The Sabbath year has always been a controversial measure. Keeping the Sabbath year was so unfeasible that, in ancient Israel, it was hardly observed. According to 2 Chronicles 36:21, the people of Israel went into captivity for every Sabbath year not kept. Eventually, this came to 70 years in exile. After the exile, the Sabbath year was closely observed, and even once when there was a famine. To this day, the Sabbath year is held in Israel, but there's always a lot of debate about how literal this law should be. Sabbath keeping is part of the rhythm of the Jewish people. Work 6 days, rest 1 day, work the land for 6 years, and let the land rest for 1 year. It all goes back to the creation in which God made the earth in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. Not because he was tired and needed to take a nap, but because God completed his work on the 7th day. In the 6 days, God made light and overcame darkness. He made land and pushed back the sea. He filled what was empty and he brought order to the chaos. In this way, God showed that he ruled over everything. And as a king who rests on his throne, so on the 7th day, God sat on the throne in his sanctuary. Keeping the Sabbath and the Sabbath year is fundamentally about a God who is in control of everything. That is also what resting means for those who observe the Sabbath. It is more about trusting in God than taking a break. The people of Israel first heard of this rule in the desert of Sinai. They had just been delivered from slavery in Egypt. There, they were forced to work to keep Egypt's economy running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not a moment of rest. Now, this measure to interrupt the week came as both surprising and strange. Because with our stores that are open 7 days a week, it is hard to imagine. But at that time, a day of not working meant the same as a day of not eating. They had put their trust in God, who would provide for them, that there would always be enough to live on. The imposed measures of the Dutch government ensures that everyone is forced to remind themselves what is really important in life. It is not strong Dutch economy that we can put our trust in, nor it is the social safety net of the welfare state or the full shelves of the lid. It may turn out that since the outbreak of the crisis, that all these things look more like a house of cards. However, we can place our trust in God, who will ultimately take care of us. Sabbath actually means to reset yourself. It is going back to basics, remembering who you really are and what is really important in life. It meant as a reminder to the people of Israel that they were once slaves and that they were now delivered, free to trust a God who is in control of everything, a God who would ensure that in the Sabbath year, the unworked land would yield enough food for a year. Today, you may also reset yourself. Remind yourself today who you really are and what is really important in this life. You are vulnerable, perishable, and utterly helpless. But just as much, you are also very precious in the hands of your Creator. You are no longer slaves to fear, but you have been set free and you are a child of God. Whatever happens, remember, the Lord will take care of you. Find peace in that truth today. May God bless you.